Wake up! I'm Doug, and this is the Taste and Sensibility channel. And today on coffee number 2, we're tasting at this fine Mexican organic coffee grown in a single region at a smallish co-op by a cooperative group of farmers. So let's pour some into the glass. Made this 20 minutes ago maybe. And then had all sorts of sound problems and the usual things after it was made, and thought I was ready to go. But I want to show you where this comes from in my book, Coffee Obsession. So let me try to spread this out. I'm not going to taste it much while it's hot. I'll taste it on the cooling curve down. Tastes pretty rich. I mean, it smells pretty rich and nice, but first I want to show, and this wonderful book, Coffee Obsession, by Annette Maldver, or something like that. Oh, there we go. Mexico. So, this is from, according to the label, the Chiapas region of Mexico. And that is right here. So it's down very close to, as close as you can get to Central America. It's the most Central America-like region. So the coffees from Chiapas can have stone fruit flavors and coconuts. On the border with Guatemala, this tropical jungle of the southeastern corner is the largest and most popular coffee producing area in Mexico. So there is what it says about it. And now that I've got the notes in my head, that's what I was getting before. It's fruity and cocoa, fruity chocolate. So I will do a little nosing. It's pretty rich, dark smelling. My first little sip while it's hot is a little bit fruity. I would say plum. I don't know if it's red, black, purple, but it's a little plummy. That's the first thing that hits me. A little brightness, but very, very little in terms of acidity. So there's an earthiness to it and a touch of a chocolate note, but it's very far down and subdued, or everything else on top of it. So I think it needs to cool off some more. But one thing I want to point out about roasting my own coffee and grinding it and controlling more of the process is that this 5-pound bag of unroasted organic beans from this single co-op in this little region of Mexico cost $20 plus shipping. Shipping wasn't free, but $20 for 5 pounds, $4 a pound for premium beans that you control the roast on, and then you control the clock ticking after you roast it. So you're in control if you can find a way to do this yourself. So a bigger taste, and it's cooler. It is hinting of chocolate. It's not a sweet chocolate, it's not especially bitter. It's kind of an earthiness that recalls chocolate on my palate. So I'll put the details of this particular collection of beans, or collection of growers, on the screen. I'll try to find some format, but it says it's 1,200 or 1,400 meters. The varieties of Arabica beans are Typica, Bourbon, and Mundo Nova. As I said, the Chiapas region, and wet milled. So I think that's pretty fancy processing with water jets or something that should take the fruit off of the beans. From Cascada Haltenango community, which sounds like a co-op. So a bunch of smaller farmers, coffee growers that are always there, pool their stuff together, and maybe they had some sort of processing plant built where they just can all take their coffee to. and get it processed. The grade is strictly high grown and it's certified organic, Rainforest Alliance and Fair Trade. Processing method is washed and sun dried. So those are details that might not mean much to you now, but we'll be going through what all those things mean in due course. I'm not trying to make people into roasters either, but it has really helped me focus on upping my coffee game. And that's what the second topic today is about, is things I was doing wrong. So this coffee is very rich and full. It's not acidic, it's not bitter, it's not burnt tasting. There's a vague fruitiness and a vague chocolatey note. And I can go any more specific than plums, plumminess, red fruits, I guess is what I'm getting. Plumminess, peach, nectarine, apricot is very mild, very light. And the chocolate notes are just kind of diffusing and floating around. They're faint. So that was interesting, and I got a pretty good temperature range from almost too hot to down to where lots of people drink it a half hour after they pour it into their big cup. So that's what I'll say about the Mexican Chiapas organic coffee. Now I'll do one more. I'll taste a little bit. I'll be drinking it while I'm talking in my second part, but I want to pour a little here and try it with cream. See how it gets along. Cream's not really part of my usual coffee routine, but if I'm in a good restaurant and know the coffee is going to be really rich, or have some other after dinner occasion, then I often add cream. So this is half and half. I've poured in here a little bit, maybe more than most people would. Oh, that's nice. Ends up with a kind of a buttery or butterscotch taste. It's suggesting caramely. The sweetness of the coffee and the sweetness of the cream are kind of pairing up to suggest a caramely taste. Wow. That's good, like a good coffee ice cream. It's feeling hot on my fingers, but it's not real hot in my mouth. That is really nice. Wow, wasn't expecting that kind of result from adding the cream to this particular coffee that I was tasting before. So that's why we do these experiments, isn't it? Wow. Sweet, caramely, kind of a chocolate note is even fainter, but in there, I think. It's a very nice gamish of pleasant flavors. I like that a lot. Okay, so I will set the cream aside and move on to the topic of the day, which is 5 things I was doing wrong before I discovered better coffee brewing techniques. So about almost 4 years ago, I was visiting some friends in St. Louis. I was taken to see them, a musical act I was excited about. And these are friends my late wife and I have known for decades and saw each other's kids grow up together. And when she was giving me coffee the next morning, she was pointing out that she was roasting her own in this little countertop appliance. It looked like a toaster oven. And she was pretty excited about the results and suggested that I might want to look into it. So I did look into it and I bought one of those things. So I got more and more into coffee, and as I was learning how to roast and do all those things, I was going, why doesn't this taste as good as Prudence's, or this doesn't taste as good as the restaurants do? What else am I doing wrong? I can roast the beans and they look okay, but what else is going on? And as I was watching YouTube videos and online resources to try to figure out more about roasting, I just found out more about coffee in general. So that's what really changed things more than picking up roasting itself. So the first thing I found out I was doing wrong was my water temperature was too low. Everybody in all the videos and sources was saying, oh, you need to do about 195 F to 205 F is the right range for making coffee most of the time, and an automatic drip setting, which is what I wanted to do because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it in the morning. I want to push a button and go once everything's together. Put in the water, put in the coffee, push a button, get it out and go. So the water temp, I had a probe thermometer like you could stick into a roast or barbecue or smoking something. So it was all stainless steel on a cable, and I threw that in my coffee maker and I measured 155 F. Way, way short of enough heat to pull out to extract the right flavor components of the coffee. So that was the first thing. So if you have a way of measuring your coffee maker's water temperature that's falling onto the ground coffee, you might want to look into that and see if it's hot enough. So what you really want to do is extract all that you can, all the flavor that you can, to minimize the amount of ground coffee you have to put in, but not over extract, which starts pulling out bitter things, bad tastes, bad smells, aromas we don't want near our nose or mouth. So there's a certain optimum for most of these things. And I was not hitting the water temperature optimum, for sure. Okay, the second most important thing was the warming burner on my coffee maker. It heated the glass carafe for hours and hours before it shut off. Was doing a terrible thing to the coffee I had just made. So the first cup you can usually pour without resorting to the warmer or without any damage from the burner, but after that every cup has cooked the coffee more. And that pointed me in the direction of a thermal carafe is what the coffee ought to drop into. Unless you know you're going to pour all the coffee into several cups for several people that are around, the burner is a terrible idea for the quality of the coffee that's tasted later. So the solution for those first two problems was a whole new coffee maker, and I did a little research and I bought a couple and played and tested and did things, and finally settled on one. There's an OXO, and I'll go into it later as I go through different brewing methods, but this is the carafe I take to work every day. So I pour some into a travel mug, then I take this and share it with someone at work who's also now a coffee enthusiast, because I've given her some black coffee that she could drink. Black, no sugar, no cream, no flavors, and she is excited about it. But this is what I take for my second cup, her cup. Maybe some days I make a lot and there's a third cup for me. Now, point number 3 was the actual recipe and measuring out scoops and measuring out cups of water versus how I do everything at work, which is weighing out grams of something. Everything I do at work is made by grams. I'm a chemist, I'm a scientist. That's what I think of, but I was measuring ground coffee with scoops. I was just pouring water into a line. And after I only had to think about that for 10 seconds before I said, oh, I can do this way better. I already had a kitchen scale that measured out in grams. So grams, it gives you enough resolution to really do it right. If you have a kitchen scale that only does ounces, half ounce, quarter ounce, those things are kind of rough on the measurement scale. You can do better if you can get grams. So I know this my daily amount is about 60 grams of coffee, plus or minus 1 or 2. And on the order, well, I do fill to a line with water in my coffee maker, but I know I'll be within 10 grams or so of my target. So that works out well, and the coffee is very uniform. You might have a slightly different amount for some other kind of coffee or for a darker or lighter roast, but the recipe is fairly important, and it's usually something on the order of 15 or 16 times the amount of water for the coffee that you have. So I will weigh out the beans, 60 grams or so, and then run the whole thing through the grinder, and then the whole thing goes into the filter basket. And see how we're doing with the Mexican here. It's still a little fruity. This has cooled off quite a bit. A little fruity, and I am getting a chocolate note. But it's just more of a suggestion of chocolate than actual cocoa or chocolate. It's not really milk chocolate, it's a little darker and more bitter than that. And it's way more of a suggestion than an actual chocolate taste. So that's what I'm getting right here. So now I measure everything pretty closely, especially when I'm doing the videos here. So this was all measured. The water and the coffee were measured by grams today for this video. So the fourth point that I was doing wrong was not paying attention to how long the beans had been roasted. How far out are they from their roast date? And sometimes you can, they start to go stale, or they get a little rancid because some of the oils are oxidizing. Certainly happens faster when you grind it first. I used to, I think I remember times when I would grind a half a pound or a whole pound of stuff and then keep it in that form. And the chemist in me knows that you're exposing all that much more surface area to the oxygen in the air, which is what's doing the damage. And I stopped that pretty quickly. But the beans don't really last. They're suboptimal after 3 or 4 weeks. Let's say that. So even when I was careful and going to roasters and paying attention to how the date it was roasted, I didn't really care that much once I got home. I could, if it lasted 2 months, I'd go, okay, that's a little older. And that is not the way that the coffee connoisseurs do it. So that's not the way I do it now. When I roast my own, I only do about half a pound. I may have 2 or 3 or 4 different kinds going, but they're sort of staggered. Might do 2 different roasts a week, but only half a pound. And I know it will get used up before 3 weeks is up. So I always have little dribs and drabs of things that I can blend together and do interesting blending experiments. And so I'm always running out, I'm always roasting more, and nothing really lasts more than 3 weeks. I don't put it in the fridge or the freezer. Some people advocate that. Some people don't like the condensation that can happen if you freeze it. But the most careful guy I know freezes daily amounts in one little bag and pulls them out daily. So there's a little condensation on the outside, but then you open it up, you let it come to room temperature, wipe off the condensation, and grind it. Boom. And it's good. If you had a bag that was going in and out of the freezer, then yeah, condensation could be a problem inside and outside, on the coffee and on the outside of the bag. But freeze individual ones and it doesn't really come up. And then even when he's freezing, he still only uses that roasted coffee for a month. So I have not noticed that I have any difference in sensory characteristics from using 3-week-old coffee. And this is pretty close to 3-week-old coffee. I think I roasted this on March 8th, and today is March 29th. So there you go, 21 days. And it tastes wonderful. No hint of a stale taste or rancidity in the oils. I like it. It's good. But I need to hurry up and use it up. And the last point is the most minor one on my list, but is important for different people for different reasons. The type of grinder that I was using was just a blade grinder, which is sort of random. It's like, spinning knife blades, and how long you grind determines the fineness of the grind, and not anything else. So it's fairly random. It makes a lot of fines, makes a lot of dust, and those are easily over extracted and can lead to bitter flavors and off flavors and bad tastes that some people find objectionable. So I switched to a burr grinder, which really controls the fineness of the grind by how far two metal surfaces are from each other. So they have some blades too, but it's a mechanism that controls how close together these metal things come, and that controls the size of the grind. And that works very well. You can look at it, you can see there's no dust, you can see there's very little of the fines that can lead to over extraction. And I don't even really think about it that much. If you need to do a pour over or espresso or siphon or AeroPress or some of these other brewing methods, you might adjust to a different optimum or a different sweet spot for each of those coffee methods. But I pretty much leave my grinder on one setting. It's close to medium. I might move it a little, nudge it towards coarse, but I don't really move it around much. I just dump in my coffee every morning, hit the button, and go. So grinder type. A blade grinder has deficiencies and can lead to problems and over extraction and bad flavors. The burr grinder gives you a very uniform grind, which means the water flows through more better, more uniformly, and less likely to clog up the paper filters and give you a nice uniform brewing time. So to wrap up today's episode, this Mexican organic coffee is very tasty. There's a little bit of a fruit note, there's a little bit of a chocolatey note, and it changes quite a bit as you go from hot to cool or even room temperature. Well, hot, cool for coffee. And it's always good, and it goes great with cream. It gives you a whole new set of flavors with the half and half in it to my palate. And then I think I've touched on this coffee is fairly inexpensive, $4 a pound. Roasting it yourself is fairly inexpensive. So this is better coffee than most people I know of have access to. You could go to Whole Foods and buy stuff, but it's 10, 12, 14 bucks a pound. And this fits into my routine. I roast a couple a week. I grind the coffee every day. I don't think about it that much. I don't spend much time on the roasting. I don't spend much time on the brewing every day and grinding. And it just comes out great. So I want to point out that I don't think that I go to a lot of trouble for it. Everyone else around me does, but I don't spend that much time or money. And I love it. So that's all for this one. I think I'm going to have some more of this. It's so good. I might do the cream again. And that's not really my thing. So next time we'll do another Mexican kind and come back for that.